Welcome to Weekend Shelf Control with me, Liam,
And me, Frankie.
and today I'm going to talk all about the Indie Horror Chapter event that happened on the 11th of April in Liverpool, where 40 plus horror authors all got together to sell their horror books.
And I'm in Australia, too far away to attend, so I have my coffee and I'm going to enjoy Liam talking about it along with all of you watching.
I did go, so you can see in the background my trusty yellow suitcase. I took that with me, empty, with the sole purpose of filling it with books. This is the third Indie Horror Chapter event that I've attended, and it's the fourth that they've done. I wasn't even aware that this was a thing when they did the first one, and they're moving it around the country. So the first one was in Birmingham, blissfully unaware that was happening. Then I think like 6-ish months later, they did one in Canterbury, and I only found out about this because one of the authors that was attending was following me on TikTok and sent me a message saying, "Oh, will I see you at the event?" What event? That's how I found out about it. And that one, it was so handy because the one in Canterbury was the day before Mother's Day. So I managed to swing it with my mum. I was like, let's do a weekend away in Canterbury. The Saturday, you're on your own. I've got a thing on. But then Sunday, Mother's Day, we'll do whatever you want to do. And she wanted to like go to a zoo or something. But you know, that was a nice way of doing it.
Yeah.
Then 6-ish months later, they did the third one in Weston-super-Mare, which I attended. And then, yes, on the 11th of April, they went to Liverpool. Now, Canterbury and Weston-super-Mare, I managed to get lifts with my mum and her partner. The Liverpool one, that's a bit of a trek. So I took my empty yellow suitcase and a backpack filled with clothes and toiletries and stuff, and did a 4-hour train ride getting there, and then a 5-hour train ride getting home from there. But you know, I would say well worth the trip because I have come away. You can't really see the full, like there is a table here. This isn't just stacked up off the floor. But you can't see quite the full spread of what I've walked away with. I will say the Canterbury one, I didn't know what to expect, so I just went with the backpack, spoke to maybe 4 authors, filled my backpack, and went, "Oh, I've made a huge mistake here because there's so many more authors, and I don't have the space to carry these books." So I did take the suitcase with me to Weston-super-Mare, and thought this is working well, but it was annoying because like I had to keep stopping to fill up the suitcase and then rearrange it, and it was just I felt like I was getting in the way and nightmare. So I've honed and refined my strategy. So now I take a tote bag that I've give me a second because it should be within arm's reach. So at the Weston-super-Mare one of the authors that was there, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this. Yeah, you can see that. Lee Mountford. He saw me struggling with a stack of books, trying to get them in a suitcase. So he just gave me this tote bag, which was super helpful because what ended up happening at Weston-super-Mare, and again, I had a car, so it helped. But I filled up the suitcase and then filled up a backpack and then filled up 2 tote bags. I walked away from that event with 88 books. Yeah, when I got home, I stacked them up into a pile. It was nearly as tall as me. So I couldn't quite go as enthusiastically last time, knowing I had a train to navigate. And I had to, not only a train to navigate, I had to lift the suitcase on and off. Not only one train, I had to have a change. And I had an 11-minute window to connect to my next train. So I couldn't go crazy. So I think, you know, I won't say how many books at this point, but I think I did okay with my restraint.
Well, yes, relative to
Yeah,
previous
exactly.
times, definitely.
Exactly. I still did the thing that I tried to do, which is visit each author's table and pick up at least one book from each author. I think there might have been a couple that I missed because I just didn't have time to get around to them, or maybe they weren't at the table when I was there. So the way these events work is they basically hire out a big room, and then there's just rows of tables essentially. There'll be tables around the outside usually, and then rows of tables in the middle with all authors set up with all their books. And I think the way most people do it is they sort of wander around and just go to like the authors that they're interested in, or if something like grabs their attention. But the way this dickhead does it is he just starts with one author and then goes to the next one and just tries to collect them all like Pokemon, basically. Which I think is really fun. It does make it a long day. Like the doors opened at 11, and I was there because I stayed at the hotel where the event was happening. So I was there for 11. I finished get into as many authors as I could at around 3:30. So it's a long day. Throughout the day, they also have authors giving like readings. I didn't get to hear any of those because I was just too busy going to each one, because you want to chat to the authors a little bit. And at this point, I would say there's probably a good 15, 20 that were at the previous event. So the suitcase is recognizable. It was really, actually, I thought really impressive that some of the authors immediately were just like, oh, hey, Liam, how's it going? Just remembered like my name from previous events. What I thought was even more impressive was one of the authors remembered the book that I was talking to them about at the last event and asked me what I thought of it now that I'd finised it. Which,
Wow.
my memory is terrible.
So is
so
mine.
How, yeah. Just when I remember the name, I'm like, that's impressive. But the book as well. But yeah, these events are so good. And not only do you have the authors as well, but I also bumped into like a whole bunch of people that I follow and interact with on TikTok. So there's a whole reader community to it as well, where you will just bump into people if you're on like social media that you've been watching, following for like a couple of years. So it's a very social day, which is interesting when you think books as a hobby is typically considered quite an introverted hobby. The thing I would say that I always find surprising, or at least the first time I found it really surprising, and then I kind of got used to it. When it comes to like horror and indie horror in particular, before going to any of these events, I had a presumption, let's say, of what the authors would be like, and I did think it would be very like awkward conversation, that very introverted kind of vibe. They're the friendliest bunch. They really are. Always willing to chat, always happy, like so welcoming as a community.
It seems to be
nice.
The same thing in movies, like horror fans with movies. Like,
yeah.
You always think because horror can be so dark and disturbing, but then all the people seem to be just like the happiest, most
really
fun,
lovely,
friendly people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll stop rambling on about the event itself, but it was really good, really well put together. There was a special guest there, which we will talk about. There was a couple of authors that couldn't make it, which was a shame, but for various reasons, which are understandable. And the other thing that's quite nice to do is if you own books by any of these authors, then I would say almost always willing to sign them for you if you want them signed. So the first two books I'm going to talk about are two books that the author reached out to me on TikTok 2.5 years ago now. It was like, would you be interested in getting like an ebook of one of mine? I don't really do ebooks, so I was like, I'll just order it on Amazon. So I ordered two of his books on Amazon. I've only read one of them so far, but I took them to get them signed. So the one that I've read is The Hunted and Other Twisted Tales by Paul J. Kearns. So I took that with me, and obviously had to get his squiggle in there. So this doesn't add as a one. I've read it, so it doesn't add as a number on my TBR. But this one I haven't read, but still I already owned it. So this is We the Damned. But that I also managed to to get his signature in. I would say almost all of these books are not only signed but also personalised, which I quite like.
Yes.
I don't think it really helps with adding value to any of these. If anything, it probably decreases it, but it makes me feel like I have more of a personal ownership over my collection, which is maybe an interesting topic we should dig into at some point. This idea of fandom and how we represent fandom and collections, and what to us a good collection means, because it would probably be different to other people. Like, is it pristine books that are untouched? Is it books with a high resale value? Books that have been personalized? Like, what do we perceive as being more covetable? Could be an interesting topic. But anyway, that'll be a future conversation. So then I had to pick up some of Paul's books that I didn't already have. So the other thing you can get at these events is a whole bunch of swag, like bookmarks and stickers and things like that. So, you know, I've got a bunch of bookmarks and whatnot. So I picked up the special edition of Beasts of Immortality. This is book 1, Blood and Purpose, by Paul J. Kearns. I don't really know a lot about this. I just know that on the back, I don't know if you'll be able to read that, but it says it's an indie horror chapter special edition. So I think he got a select few of these covers specially made to sell at the event. And then you can get them in your sort of standard covers. It was the same price, so I was like, well, I'll get the special edition ones, obviously.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing, like going back into that conversation of being a collector, do things like special editions, collector's editions, etc. Do we seek those out, or is it just about the content? As long as the story's the same, we don't care about the packaging that it's in.
I have two thoughts. It's
Go on.
as in, it depends. I don't care about a special edition just to have a special edition.
Mm-hmm.
But if I think it looks really great and it's really pretty, then I will get it. So I don't feel like I have to have a special edition, but if it looks nice.
See, for me,
because usually they cost a lot more, so you've got that price factor as well.
See, for me, I tend to gravitate more towards the special editions because I'm optimistic. So in my mind, I'm like, well, if I like it, I've got the special edition. What I don't want to do is get the normal edition, like it, and then be like, oh no, now I want to get the special edition.
You see,
so I just jump ahead.
For special editions that are like the high-end special editions,
Yeah, like the ones that are really expensive.
Yeah, I will not purchase one of them without reading the book. If it's just a slightly elevated one, possibly, but generally I don't buy the fancy special editions. I mean, I don't often buy them anyway, but like Folio Society or something, you know.
Yeah.
I'm only going to buy books that I really like if I'm going to pay that much for them, so I wouldn't take a chance.
Yeah. Which is one of the ways where we differ.
Yes.
I will roll the dice and take that chance. So this is a fantasy horror hybrid, I believe, which has me interested. Quite a chunky book. And that was book 1. I also then, you know, you can't just get book 1, can you? If you could also get the Beasts of Immortality book 2, Armed to the Teeth, which again,
I
the
do
special
really
edition
like
cover.
those covers, yeah.
They're nice, right? And the fact that it was the same price as the normal cover, why not? Again, this book is slightly thicker than the first one, so a lot of pages. And then it was a trilogy. So we had Beasts of Immortality, book 3, A Thunder of Dragons, with the special edition cover. So yeah, I think Paul was one of the first authors that I stopped at their table, just because I've chatted to him on TikTok for literally 2.5 years, so I figured it'd be nice to go and say hi. And I picked up those 3 books and got the 2 signed. these three that I picked up also um, were obviously all signed as well. I won't show each one, but yeah.
Oh, I just looked up the normal covers, and yeah, those ones are much nicer.
Do you want to show the normal ones so we can do like a comparison if you can? Oh, there we go. Yeah.
I mean, it just looks like a war book.
Yes.
Which does not interest me, I have to say.
Yeah.
But knowing it's horror, I'm sure there's more to it. But yeah, that cover is not one that would draw me in. Whereas when you held up those books, I was like, oh, I like those covers.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, that was Paul J. Kearns. Then the next book that I'm going to show you, this is in no particular order, just I've randomly stacked them. So we're going to go by whatever one I grab next. So this is It Came from the Pothole by Spook Tatham, which is a pseudonym for one of the authors that was there. It's described as like a kind of like inspired by Tremors is the vibe, I think.
Okay, straight on the read list.
But British, so it's like potholes and things. And what I thought was interesting, because I asked around this, is it was signed, but the author signed it using the pen name's signature. I don't know, that's not coming through very well. Yeah, there we go. So I asked the question then, obviously, of, so have you had to develop your own, like a different signature for this pen name? Which, yeah, he did have to do. But yeah, this is a very tiny little book.
Oh, I see. Never mind.
What?
No, I thought I had found another book similar titling by the same author, but then I realized it's a different author. But yes, I'm adding this to my read list because any mention of any kind of Tremors association gets my interest. So in the wish list.
Okay. I mean, how accurate that is and how well I'm remembering is two very different things.
That's all right.
But yeah,
it's still something coming from potholes. So it's still like the title is still interesting.
Yes, exactly. Right. So the next author is Justin Boote, and I ended up spending the Saturday night drinking and wandering Liverpool with Justin and one of the other authors since I was staying at the hotel. So Justin was saying that he's in the last year or so has transitioned to writing full time as his like primary source of income, and we had some interesting conversations around. I was asking, does he write based on like whatever inspiration strikes him and where the creativity takes him, or does he track trends and try to write to what is popular at the time, because he's approaching it from a very business mindset of how do I use this as a way to make money, pay bills, and I think, you know, that's a different mindset than what maybe other authors might approach the act of creating, which I found curious. So he's currently writing a erotica, but maybe with some splatterpunk thrown in. I couldn't get a clear steer if that was happening or not. He was like, erotica is popular at the moment, so I'm gonna give it a go. So
so he has a first erotica book.
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
So I picked up 3 from Justin. The first one, this is just a lovely cover. Fluid Freaks. Just appreciate the beauty of that. Would you like to hear what this book is about?
I would.
Okay, I'm going to read the blurb off the back. Gary's young son has a cold. Gary hates bodily fluids, so when his wife comes home with a new contraption for him to help with cleaning his son's nose, he is horrified. It's a tube where one sucks the snot out of the kid's nose into a small piece of foam. With no choice one day but to do it himself, it all goes terribly wrong. He forgets to put in a new piece of foam. Yet something unexpected happens. Something that will transform Gary's life. Now, instead of being horrified by his kid's runny nose, he will be excited about it. That was a brilliant reaction. I was like, the penny dropped in real time there. Yeah, and it doesn't stop there. Soon, Gary will be attracted to all kinds of bodily fluids. The trouble is, where does he draw the line? If he indeed can.
Yeah, that one, I'm sorry, is not going on my wish list.
No?
No.
Okay, well that's Fluid Freaks.
Wow.
Then, and I don't really know what this is about, but I could hazard a guess. I picked up Soiled.
Oh yeah.
Which is that's just a lovely cover. Lovely cover.
Yeah, I don't want to know.
I won't read this one out, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was within the same wheelhouse as Cravings, which I recently discussed. I don't know if that video will be live when this one goes live.
That seems to be a theme.
Yeah. What was that? And then the third one that I picked up was Love You to Bits, which was described as a splatterpunk erotica.
Okay.
So again, this is just like, that is such a cool cover, isn't it? So yeah, this is the one that out of those three I'm probably most curious about, but I am super intrigued by Fluid Freaks and Soiled. Again, like I was saying with the Cravings book, I just love that these things exist. We just live in a world where people can create this and turn it into something, and then certain types of people will buy it. So that was Justin's books. Next to him on the table was so Justin flew in from Spain, I believe. Then we had another author, Lesley A. Camphouse, who I've just finished reading one of her books called Ingest Me, which I'll be talking about in our April wrap-up. But I quite enjoyed Ingest Me, so I was like, I'll go have a little look at what else Lesley has, and she's got Roll for Initiative, which is like a D&D inspired splatterpunk horror book. Cool cover. Yeah. So I went to Lesley because at the last event I picked up, she's got a trilogy called Apex Prey, and I picked up the first one, and I really wanted to get the other two, but she was only selling the trilogy as like a collected book, like omnibus. So I might just have to order the other two off Amazon and then take it and get her to sign them at a future event. But I couldn't leave the table without getting something, and if you're gonna give me a D&D inspired horror book, I'm gonna grab that.
Yeah.
So I meant to talk about this book first and completely forgot. For the event, they did this Depths of Darkness, which is a horror anthology that features 15 of the authors that were at the event. And this I thought was a really cool idea, and I just couldn't do what I wanted to do with it. They had a page with each author where you could go around and get the authors to sign it. Now, I only got two of the authors who were like next to each other when I picked it up, because with the suitcase, I picked it up and then put it in the suitcase. I was like, oh, I can't be able to keep getting it out every time I come across a new author to get him to sign it.
Yeah.
So that's my bad, kind of. At a future event, I'll probably take it and try and get it signed. I will say, this whole idea I had of going to each author, because I've done it previously, there were like 2, maybe 3 authors where I'd actually already had all of their books, which is quite nice, because I could just stop at the table, have a little chat. I'd be like, I don't have to spend any money. I have all of your books. Bye. The downside is I have them. I haven't read a lot of them yet, but I'm working on it. You know. But yeah, so I picked up Depths of Darkness, and I picked this up from the author Catriona Moat, because I already had her other two books. I didn't have this one, another one, and she was next to her husband Jim Odie, so I got the two of them to sign it. Jim Odie, you might recognise his name because I recently read The Voyeur,
Yes,
and we spoke
which
about that.
I have waiting to be read on my Kindle.
Yes. So they basically released this anthology, and all sales were towards a charity that's based in Liverpool that is supportive of mental health. So just a cool idea. And throughout the day, various authors were doing readings from their entries into this. I just kicking myself for not going around and like collecting signatures. And I just think it's really cool that they had a signature page specifically for that purpose. An idea that I've had, because they sell, so Indie Horror Chapter, who put this on, they're a Facebook group primarily, and you don't have to pay entry or nothing like that. It is literally for fans, completely free event. But you can buy like t-shirts and tote bags and things like that, and that money they put towards charity. And I was thinking that a really good service they should offer is you go there and maybe say £5 per book, you give it to someone that's working the event, and they will go off and get the book signed. So like with that, for example, you're not then having to fight through everyone. Just it's a service, £5 straight into their charity pot, and someone that works there will go around all the authors and get the book signed for you. So I just think, you know, you're trying to make money. It could be a money maker. I don't know. Right, back to the books. So then we've got Lisa Hutchinson. This is Dark Deluge, Matilda. This was written in conjunction with another author who was supposed to be at the event but couldn't make it for medical reasons. Kelvin V. Allison, I think it's or V.A. Allison, something like that. Again, I've got a bunch of his books from the previous event. Just haven't got around to reading them. But this book is like a companion piece to one that he's written. They can be read independently, but I will obviously be picking up his one and then I'll read them together. But I haven't read anything from Lisa before. This sounds interesting, dark. The thing is, when you go to the authors' tables, they always will say, well, what kind of horror do you like? And if you had to answer that question, how would you answer it? So it's like an author has their books in front of them and they're sat there and they look at you. Frankie, what kind of horror do you like? What would you say?
Oh God. Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard thing to just give one answer as a full thing, because I kind of have things I like in stories. Like, you know, I do like vampires and that whole thing. More in the realm of like serial killers or haunted houses or things like that. But it's just kind of things I like, not really just a general catch-all term. Yeah. I don't know how I would answer that.
So I've had to develop an answer because I had the same thing when I was first asked. I was like, I don't know how to answer that question. But giving it thought, my stock answer is always the weirder the better and good characters. If you combine those two into a book, I'm normally interested at least. If I'm reading a book and I'm like, I've not read anything like this before and I can't predict where it's going, I'm kind of happy with it.
See, the thing is, they are things that I would just think are general things, but when you say what type of horror, that makes my brain go to horror-specific things, not just story-specific things. Yeah. So that's probably my problem there.
Yeah, whereas, but that's what gets me in the horror, is like the darker and the weirder the better.
Yeah, I do like very dark without going into bodily fluid type stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, a different kind of dark.
yeah, of course.
But so I think I pretty much would just find that hard to answer and would just need to browse the books and go, oh, this sounds interesting.
Yeah, and certain covers will stand out as well.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, and some authors will run through and be like, right, this book's about this book's about that, this book's about that, and I'm just like,
that's better.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, that's better than asking me to say stuff.
Exactly. Right, so next author was E.R. Vickers. This is Torment After Death. This was a cover buy for me. I think it's a cool cover. Even the back has a cool image on it.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't know anything what this is about. I just think it looks cool. So, and E.R. Vickers, I picked up one of her books at the previous event, and I've been meaning to read it, and I had every intention to read it before this one, and just ran out of time. Like, it was on my shelf, pulled out, ready to go. I even took it with me on the train to read it, but then the second half of the train journey there, a bunch of lads on like a stag do just got on and just sat all around me. For one stop, I had the carriage all to myself, and then they got on, and then the next hour was spent listening to them talk about presumably their friends, but someone called Smallface and someone called Longlegs. I just, honestly, it was painful, and I was like, this is not the time to be pulling out my my weird horror books and reading them, as I'm like crunched in the corner, and they're all like drinking cider from cans. And anyway, I'm getting distracted. So then I went to the next author, which there is an order to these. This is the order. So Elizabeth J. Brown, who has written these Brimstone Chorus books. I have the first one, which is called The Laughing Policeman, which is part of a series, but they're kind of quite loosely connected. So this is the second one, which is The Fractured Few. They are, I believe, and I could be getting this way wrong, but I believe they're kind of like demonic detective kind of stories.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. So yeah, the second one being The Fractured Few, and then I also grabbed the third one, which is The Bloodvein Wand. So this was one of my exceptions from my I'm only going to do one book from each author, being mindful of the suitcase size. I knew I wanted to try and get these two, and I did go to Elizabeth's table quite early. I was like, I'm just going to pick up the first one or the second one, see how my suitcase is looking, and then I'll come back if I've got room. And I will say she was the only author that I returned to because I just didn't have room. So I was like, right, I think I can squeeze in the third one. I'm gonna do it. So yeah, and she was kind enough to say that she enjoyed my TikTok videos, and we got a selfie together that she's put on social media. And yeah, she remembered the yellow suitcase from before and was asking if that was going to be full of books. One thing that I've noticed that people like to do at these events is they come up and I go, is that suitcase full of books? And my response is just, lift it and find out. And they very quickly go, yeah, you've just filled a suitcase with books, haven't you? Yeah, that's why I took it. Okay. So the next author that I went to, again, this is an author that I brought, so we're going back a year now. First met in Canterbury, and it's author's name is Jasper Bark. He's one of the ones that was very good at like, oh, you're right, Liam, how's it going? I was like, oh, okay, that's nice. So in Canterbury, I picked up one of his books called Draw You In, which was the first volume, part of a trilogy. At Western Supermare, I picked up the second and third. I have read the first volume of Draw You In, and I liked it. It was about a comic book artist who's like in the industry, and she has this artist that she's like inspired by, and this sketchbook turns up, and she sees it, and she's like, wow, I've never seen anything like this before. And then the next day, no one remembers seeing it. And like when she tries to talk to people about it, they do not have any recollection of this whatsoever. It was a really interesting concept, and I'm very curious what's going to happen in the second and third volumes. But I wanted to pick up more of Jasper's books. I've also read So he contributed to an anthology with Aaron Beauregard, who I've spoken about on here, and John Athan. They did a book together, the three of them, called Beyond Reform, where each one did 2 short stories, which they put into this book. And Jasper had 2 really interesting ones that really kind of stood out, because both Aaron Beauregard and John Athan, very extreme splatterpunk, like dark, twisted. Jasper's was a little bit more social commentary, and a little bit more like magical realism inspired, I would say. So yeah, I found that interesting. So I picked up by him The Final Cut, which am I going to remember how he described it? It's film-ish based. Do you know what? I'm just going to read the start of the blurb, because the way that Jasper described it made it sound really interesting, and I don't want to butcher this. So, The Final Cut is a genre-busting mashup of crime, horror, and urban fantasy. An imaginative and thought-provoking tale that explores our need to watch and make horror fiction, examining not just the medium, but the purpose of storytelling itself. Taking in everything from ancient myth to modern atrocity, this novel will entrance, mystify, and appall you in equal measures, haunting you long after you've reached the very last line. In an East London lockup, 2 filmmakers, Jimmy and Sam, are duct taped to chairs and forced to watch a snuff film by Ashcan, a loan shark to whom they owe a lot of money. If they don't pay up, they'll be starving in the next one. Before the film reaches its end, Ashcan and all his men are slaughtered by an unknown assailant. Only Jimmy and Sam survive the massacre, leaving them with the sole copy of the snuff film. The filmmakers decide to build their next movie around the brutal film. While auditioning actors, they stumble upon Melissa, an enigmatic actress who seems perfect for the leading role, not least because she's the spitting image of the snuff film's main victim. Neither the film nor Melissa are entirely what they seem. That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So I picked that one up, and then I also picked up Harmed and Dangerous, which won. Great title. I'm not going to read the whole blurb because I kind of remember what this was about, so I'm going to give you my interpretation of the synopsis. But you follow Kyra, who is 17 years old. She's lost in this remote town in Louisiana, and she's looking for birth parents that she never knew. And there's this intangible presence that's following her. It's hiding in her peripheral vision, so she can't see, hear, or touch it, but she knows that it's there. And then her vision goes, and when it returns, she's seeing the world as it was 15 years ago. So physically in the present, but everything you see happened a decade and a half ago. And she suddenly realizes she's looking through the eyes of the serial killer who murdered her birth mother. That sounds interesting. So yeah, I had to pick that one up. We're getting there. I'm going to do a couple more books, and then we'll split this as part 1, and we'll have a part 2 and probably a part 3. Looking at how many books are still to go, definitely a part 3.
Yeah.
So, on my night out on the Saturday with Justin drinking, was also joined by the author R.J. Daly. What they did after the event is the organisers basically hired out a room in a pub, and they put on like music. You could get drinks. Like it had its own bar. You could order food. So a bunch of the authors went there. A few of the readers went there, and then I kind of walked back to the hotel with Justin and RJ, and then we had a couple more drinks at the hotel bar, and then called it a night. But this is Monstrous Behaviour. I picked up, so RJ's 2, I would say, better known books. It's called, the first one's called Run Red, and the second one I believe is called Run Red Ordnance. But I already had those, so I decided to pick up Monstrous Behaviour. I don't really know what it's about, I'll be honest. I think that's a nice cover. has
Yeah.
me intrigued. I will probably prioritising reading Run Red over this, but I definitely want to get around to this. I see Run Red recommended a lot in like these are the splatterpunk books you should read, which has me wanting to check that out. But yes, that was part one of the books. I wasn't keeping count of how many we covered there, but we still have a lot more to go. So join us for part two, where you will hear about more of the books that I picked up at the Indie Horror Chapter event, number 4 in Liverpool.